I am Zamala Haynes Joseph, head of the Standards Development Department, and I am very happy to welcome you to our consultation for the label on appliances. And we hope to give you some more information on this standard and as well as the St. Lucia Bureau of Standards. So I have the privilege of welcoming you and as well giving a brief background as to standardization and why, in fact, we are having such a consultation to generate feedback. With me, we have members of the Electrical and Electronics Technical Committee, and particularly the chairman of that committee, Mr. David Hood, who will be presenting the elements of the standard, the actual requirements. We have members of the St. Lucia Bureau of Standards Development Team, Ms. Gillian Portland, the technical secretary of that committee. We have Ms. Kensha Neptune, who is the secretary support, and of course, Ms. Saskia Augustine, who is a member of our team and always willing to give us assistance in the projects. So we promise to keep you within the hour, and with that, we will start with just a little bit about SLBS. So the housekeeping, just remember to rename yourself so we know who is present, and if you have a question, you can be identified. You will be muted while speakers are giving their presentations. However, if you would like to speak, you just raise your hand and you will be recognized by the facilitator and given the opportunity to speak. If the order in which you raise your hand is the order in which you will be called upon to speak if you have a question, query, comment. You may also send in written comments if you don't want to speak to the, you will see questions and answer in the participants list. So any written comments or questions that you have, you can send it and it will be read out for you during that part of the segment. We are, in fact, recording the event, and that is, we will not be putting the question and answer segment, but just the generic presentation on the standard. We will be putting that on our YouTube. So persons who did not get through with the event can tune in and see just the brief on the standard while it is available for public comment. And if you are using a computer for best, the best way to enjoy the event is to go into full screen. Of course, if you're on a mobile device, tablet or phone, it goes into full screen automatically. So if you've not yet accessed the standard, you will see that link coming up in the chat. So you can click and access the standard. And if you have never accessed it, we will go through how you go about creating an account and being able to give your comments directly. We have a short video on that from our communications team as well. So it's recommended that you access the standard from now as we go along, because our presentation is not going to be word for word what's in the standard, but you may always refer to your actual standard. So you have any comments that you would like to give immediately. These will be tabled. They might not all be addressed because the technical committee has to review the comments, but giving them through this forum, it will be recorded and delivered to the technical committee during the inquiry deliberations. Okay, so the SLBS, we can move past this. SLBS is part of a quality infrastructure where the role of the SLBS is focused on developing standards, promoting conformity assessment and metrology. So we really are quality infrastructure institutions, right? And we do have the core, the governance at the core, which gives us our legislation, our laws. That is what is, guiding us and the work that we do. And of course, we offer quality infrastructure services, and it doesn't necessarily have to be the St. Lucia Bureau of Standards, because these services relate to quality promotion. These services relate to conformity assessment in terms of certification, inspections, calibration, and verification. And these, of course, benefit enterprises, organizations, and companies. And we're all doing this so that we have the consumers being safe consumers being satisfied and the products that are delivered to the consumers meet their requirements. So we continue to advocate, to raise awareness, and to focus on capacity building in quality infrastructure. Next slide. The next slide, please. Next slide, please. All right, so we're doing all of this against the World Trade Organization substantive provisions that ask for equal treatment of goods and services regardless of origin and reducing technical barriers to trade. And we try not to reinvent the wheel, to share the information we have and have a public comments period. That is our commitment as signatories of WTO. And this is one of the reasons why we're having this event, to promote this public comments period. The standards development process is such that we start with a proposal received, and we develop a working draft. We develop a committee draft when the committee members are satisfied. And once they're satisfied, it goes out for public comment, which is where we're at now, stage 14. After this, the standard comments will be incorporated and it will be approved by the technical committee and forwarded to our Standards Council for consideration. If the Standards Council is satisfied that we have done everything in terms of ensuring we meet those principles under the WTO Annex 3, then the standard is adopted and published in our National Gazette. This typically takes 24 to 36 months at a regional level, but 18 to 36 months at a national level. It takes about 3 years to develop a standard. And every 3 to 5 years or 5-year max, we try to do post-release maintenance, which is review, revise the standard. And this standard that we have today is an example of one which would have undergone maintenance. Next slide. And we have technical committees who actually do this work, who review the standards, who are involved in getting the work done. And it's made of cross-section of experts, of consumers, government, industry, regulatory authorities, non-governmental organizations also. So it's a cross-section of individuals who serve voluntarily to developing those standards. And with that, I would like to pass over to Ms. Gillian Portland, who will deliver just a brief background on the standard as to how we got here. Ms. Portland.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Zamala and Joseph. SLNS 53, Labeling of Domestic Appliances, was adopted in 2002. The standard is a compulsory standard that was published in the Gazette on June 30th, 2003. SI number 2004, number 14. DNS-1, 53, Labeling of Commodities, Part 53, Labeling of Electrical Appliances Requirements, is a revision of SLNS 53, 2002, Labeling of Electrical Appliances. The standard has been renumbered to meet numbering convention for series of labeling requirements. This standard provides requirements to guide manufacturers and importers on labeling considered necessary to provide adequate information to the consumer. This standard covers the general labeling requirements for electrical appliances. There may be further labeling requirements for specific electrical appliances in other standards, in which case additional compliance will be necessary. The St. Lucia Electrical Supply Act, Chapter 9.02, revised in 2008, shall be used in accordance with this standard for the nominal supply voltages. And within the standard, updates include the scope. We have changes in the definitions, requirements for caution markings, and packaging for domestic appliances and the normative preferences. Okay, now I'm going to hand over to our presenter for the elements of the DNS 1 Part 53, Mr. David Hood, Chairman of Electricals and Electronic Technical Committee.
Good morning to everyone. To Samala, Haynes, Joseph, and Mrs. Portland, Julian Portland, thank you very much. I'm the presenter, Mr. David Hood, Chairman of the Electrical Technical Committee. Elements of the DNS 1 to 53. Element of the DNS 1 to 53, forward scope, normative references, terms and conditions, terms and definition, general requirements, caution marking, packaging. This national standard applies to the labeling requirements for all electrical appliances that are intended for sale where such units are displayed, offered for sale, or at the point of sale in St. Lucia. It applies to appliances intended for use at the following nominal supply voltage, 240 and 415 volts, with a relative tolerance of +4 and -8%. This standards also specifies labeling requirements for the packaging of electrical appliances. The standard does not apply to appliances designed exclusively for industrial purposes or appliances intended to be used in locations where special conditions prevail, such as the presence of a corrosive or explosive atmosphere in form of dust, vapor, or gas. Terms and definitions. Definition highlighted in purple and red are new. Next slide. General label requirements. All labels used on package shall be permanent, durable, legibly, and conspicuous, and shall be in accordance with specification for the labeling of commodities, Part 1, General Principles. General requirements. The name or registered trademark of the manufacturer or responsible local distributor, serial number where applicable, the nature of the voltage supply to the appliance as appropriate unless the rated frequency of 50 Hz is marked, AC or AC or the symbol, DC or DC or the symbol, AC-DC or AC-DC or the symbol. Next slide. General requirements. Outlook that comes with appliance need the following information. If an outlet supplied on or without the appliance is provided to power other appliances, the following shall be marked on the outlet or in close proximity to that outlet. Next slide. General requirements. All statements shall be printed or written in the English language using the English alphabet with or without accent signs, letters, symbols, graphical symbols, or numerical symbols may be used. Caution markings. Caution markings intended to inform the user of a potential risk or injury to persons shall be prefixed by the word and or pictogram for caution, warning, or danger. The signal word and or pictogram shall be more prominent than any other marking used on the appliance. Next slide. Caution markings shall be labeled sorry, caution marking shall be legible and visible from the position which presents maximum exposure to risk. If the configuration of the appliance is such that it presents danger to the user or service personnel, then a label shall be placed in a suitable area on the appliance to indicate such danger. Next slide. Packaging. The functionality of the electrical appliance, brief product description, the necessary condition for operation and requirements, the country of origin, the model number or other identification of the model of the appliance shall be marked on the packaging of the electrical appliance. Packaging. Any special handling instruction shall be placed on the packaging of the electrical appliance. Next slide. Packaging. There shall be an indication of whether the electrical appliance was reconditioned, manufactured, or refurbished on the packaging of the electrical appliance. Any question?
So we now have the question and answer segment. What is the key difference in this updated standard compared to the older version that was originally adopted in 2003?
Okay, as you were, the updated includes scopes, definitions, requirements for caution markings and packaging for domestic appliance and numerative references. This is the difference between the old and the new.
Thank you, Mr. Neil. I'm not seeing any of our conformity assessment members in the meeting, but it would have been interesting to know how the application and implementation of that standard has been, considering that it was indicated that it is a mandatory standard, having been declared mandatory through a statutory instrument. I do know that there's a lot of monitoring and market surveillance being done, and we are hoping that really all of the issues that maybe would have come about, particularly when we think of the consumer, the purchaser, in getting information on an electrical appliance from the label, would be sort of reduced and addressed as you and your committee would have updated that standard. Are there any other questions coming in the chat, maybe from importers? All right, so I see one hand raised. Mr. Matthias, you should be able to speak now. Mr. Matthias Polius.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can
Hello?
hear you. Go ahead with your question.
Okay, one of the long-running issues I've had is this idea of commercial entities being allowed to bring into St. Lucia appliances using the 110 volts. I noticed that from the very first slide you have there, it talks about 240 to 415, and you are quoting the Electrical Supply Act as the case may be, which is 220 plus or minus 8% or 240, whatever the case may be. And I've always had an issue with that because in the European Union, or even if you go next door, Matnik, you cannot go to any of these stores, Weldon, or these stores in La Galleria and get any equipment that is 110. Yet it is the same equipment, the same brands are made in the United States, but they make them for the European Union. And because the laws of the European Union say we only accept in 220 volts, you get them 220. But then you have people allowed to bring in equipment 110 volts. And in this day of talk of energy efficiency, global warming, they have to be using transformers wasting a lot of energy, wasting a lot of heat, etc. And I've always wondered whether it is not possible to incorporate in our standards a law, something like that, to ensure that where you are selling to the general public, it must be 220 volts. I am not pleased with this idea of people can bring in 110 volts and then you are being asked to buy transformers and all of this sort of thing like that. I think the time has come for us to move away from that. You want to import your own thing from America, from the United States, Canada, Barbados, Trinidad, 110 volts, that is your personal thing. I have no queries with that. But as long as you're starting to sell to the general public, you are Home Depot, you are Cots, you are this, you are that, I have a disagreement with the selling to the public in St. Lucia items that are on 110 volts. I have an issue with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Polius. Mr. Hood, Chairman, you want to take that question or statement?
Yeah, I'll take that question on. I'm in total agreement with Mr. Polius on one hand, but at the same time, I've got to watch on the consumer side. The consumer have the right as to what they purchase, when they purchase, and how they purchase it. What I would go further to say, although on the scope, we also mentioned the 240 and 415 volts, and we said +8 and +4 minus 8%. The Bureau standard, from what I gathered, and if I'm wrong, Mr. Joseph, you can tell me, the Bureau standard is there primarily to see about standards and not really to regulate. They are not a regulator. They are not an enforcer, I can put it that way. So this is something that Commerce have to sit down with orders like the Chief Electoral Department of Infrastructure and then put them, because they are the one who does the inspection. They are the one that's primarily in charge of electricity on a whole in St. Lucia. So it's a discussion that we need to have, but as to tell the consumer what to buy, what not to buy, this is something that's going to be going over and over. I myself have tried it. I would love for 240, 50 hertz only to come in here, you know, because the person that is laughing is Lucia that's laughing all the time with the frequency when they bring in 60 hertz frequency. And there are appliances that actually will tell you, do not plug this if it's not a 60 hertz. It actually tells you, but yet still we plug it on a 50 hertz. So this is what I can actually tell you, Mr. Polius, in agreement with what you stated, but at the same time, we cannot push the Bureau standard, cannot just push it onto the people. Remember, they are only there to make sure that the standards are carried out, but at the same time, we still follow the British standard, BS 7671, and we've got to, we have our own local regulation, also our own local law when it comes to electricity. Thank you.
If I might also add to that, Mr. Hood, just to bring us back into focus, the standard that we're working on now is for labeling. So it's specific to the labeling of domestic electrical appliances at 240 volts and with the nominal supplied and 415 volts as well. And of course, you have your tolerances as indicated before. So while the issue of control or specifying which products or what rated voltage is allowed to be sold on the market is a very important issue. It is not one that we can capture and deal with in that standard, seeing that the standard scope is limited to the labeling of appliances rated at 240 volts. Maybe one of the things we can do, because we at one point tried to see whether we could include requirements in that standard for labeling of appliances rated at 120 volts. But of course, as Mr. Hood would have indicated, based on the legislation and of course our BS 7671, which is the electrical installation standard that we follow here in St. Lucia, we could not include it. So the issue is maybe something through regulation we can try to tackle, but as Mr. Hood would have said, we really have to focus on what we can do. And that this standard that we're working on is specific to labeling of the domestic appliances, where it be it 240 volts or 415 volts with the respective tolerances. Do we have any typed in questions coming in through the Q&A?
Samara?
I'm not seeing any further hands being raised. Mr. Hood, is there any specific thing you want to add? Because I can note that this committee had been working on a review and a revision for probably about 9 months now. So anything you want to add in terms of the work of the committee, how the committee is you know, have been working and looking forward to receiving comments on this standard?
Yes, Mrs. Joseph. Just to recap again on these new changes, you've got the terms and definitions, which is very important. You have rated frequency, you have rated current, you have module, you have rated voltage range, you have rated power input. You also have on the DNS 1253, you have 3.5 rated frequency assigned by the manufacturer, which is expressed in hertz. You have 3.6 rated current, root mean squared. Okay, that's the RMS. Current assigned to the appliance by the manufacturer, which is expressed in amperes. You have 3.7 rated voltage, root mean squared, voltage assigned by the manufacturer, which is expressed in volts. 3.8 rated voltage range assigned by the manufacturer, which is expressed by its lower and upper limits in root mean. Okay, value 3.9 rated power input assigned by the manufacturer, which is expressed in watts, volt, amps, or a multiple of any two terms. So as you can see, we at the Bureau Standard, as well as part of the committee, technical committee, we are working hard enough to ensure that our electricity in St. Lucia, you know, is guided accordingly. And I must say, and I give kudos to all my other team members as chairman for a job well done. And we have more to do, because next year we've got to sit down and figure out as to how we can go about making the place, making the country safe when it comes in terms of electricity. It is paramount that health and safety is #1 in this country, because you've got so many things, so many mishaps are happening. So for those of you out there, the information is at the Bureau of Standard. You can always call in. You can always call one of the members. So, you know, or you can even come in if you're not too sure of what you're doing. And Mr. Polius, like I said, and I'll state it again, I agree, I'm in agreement with you, but this is bigger than my paycheck. Sorry about that. Okay, then thank you, Mrs.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Hood, for that. I just want to recognize the director of the Central Bureau of Standards. I think I saw him pop up on my screen. I don't know if he has anything he wants to add before we move into how to access the standard, access the comments portal, and submit your comments online. Mr. Vern Emmanuel, are you still there? Am I putting you on the spot? Okay,
hello,
so
I am here. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
I'm indeed happy to see that we have a very good turnout at this consultation. I would like to congratulate the committee on the work that they're doing, and that electricity supply and conformity to the requisite standards is indeed something that is becoming more and more pertinent and realistic. I think with the existing conformity assessment mechanisms, the supply and the reliability of electrical appliances is very much a topic for our increased sustainability. I note the question specifically with regard to the interface of the standard and the legislation. And it is indeed that the standard invariably must follow the existing legislation, which speaks to 240 volts plus or minus 8% and 4%, and 50 hertz plus or minus 3% in terms of our frequency. I think specific reference to 110 or 120 volt appliances is something that may be for future consideration in terms of how our overall planning would go, but that is essentially site specific. So we definitely can only at this point work within a standard which conforms to the existing legislation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Emmanuel, for those brief remarks and really allowing us to come back to focus in terms of what we can and cannot do. The legislation always takes precedence over standards. So I will now show a short video so persons who have not yet had the opportunity to access the standard would be aware how to access the standard.
Welcome to a brief tutorial on how to use the comments platform for our draft national standards that are out for comments. We start by opening a browser window, could be Torch, Chrome, whichever one is your favorite, and going to the URL www.slbs.org. Alternatively, if you got our emails, you should be able to either click on one of the links to access the portal, or you could also scan the QR code that is provided. It will also take you to the portal. Once you are on our homepage, scroll down to Standards for Public Comment. Click on that. This will take you to the Standards for Public Comment page. Here there is a list of the standards that are out for public comments. You click on one of the standards, the one that interests you, that you would like to comment on. If you've never used our portal before, you will need to register. For those who have used our portals, they could simply log in. However, if you've never used it before, you should register. The registration process is quick and easy. You put in your username, your first name, last name, your email address, and you choose a password. The password should have at least 6 characters and a number. Next, you choose your stakeholder category, whether you are industry, government, or consumer, labor, trade associations, non-governmental agency, regulatory authority, academia and research, or other. I will choose consumer. Now, if you are a member of a technical committee with the St. Lucia Bureau of Standards, you can select the committee you are a part of. If not, you could just select no. For this question, are you a member in SLBS TC? Then you select I'm not a robot, and you can go ahead and register. Now you are in the draft standard that you selected. Here you would see a button which says read draft document, and 2 text boxes, comment, and in the bracket justification for change, and below it the proposed text of change. Below you would have your clause number, your subclause number, or your annex depending on what you're commenting on, your paragraph, your figure, your table, and the type of comment you are making, whether it is general comment. If it is a technical comment, then you select technical comment, or if it's editorial, then you'd select editorial. So to start perusing and commenting on the standard, you first click read draft document. This opens up the standard in a sub window. Now, for ease of use, you are able to read the standard and type your thoughts down. To achieve this, you click on the top of the window, the standard window. At this point, you drag this to the side of the screen and it should snap. Then you take the browser window, drag that to the other side of the screen, and it snaps. This way you are able to read the standard and still have access to the comment window where you would be writing your thoughts down. So now your first comment could be this. And your proposed text of change. Then you choose your clause number. Let's use number 4, harvesting. Then you choose your paragraph. Let's just say the second paragraph. And then the type of comment. So we will say an editorial comment. And then you add your comments. Now your comments will be recorded. You can see it here. And now you can continue perusing the document and adding additional comments. Once you are done, you can log off, or you could just close your browser window. To log off, you can just log out here, or just close your browser window. And that is how you use our comments platform to peruse and comment on our draft national standards. We are looking forward to hearing from you. If this video was helpful, or you have recommendations or suggestions, or you just have any other inquiries, feel free to drop us a line at info@slbs.org.
Thank you very much to our Information or Communications Department for providing us with this brief tutorial video. Now you will get that link in the chat on how to view that video. Also, the link that's already in there on how to access the standard. If you use that link, it also has on that page not only how to do the online commenting, but also a little tutorial on how to do the filling in the form, the comments form, and submitting it via email. So there's a lot of ways that you can access us and be able to submit your comments and feedback on the standard. Let me thank you for your participation and your attendance at this event. We, of course, We, of course, have made available many opportunities for persons to provide comments on the standard. You could go to our website. The link is also available online. I'm trying to multitask and get that link for you at the same time. But if anything, we could always send those things via email once again. So you can submit your comments online. You can fill in the comments template. If you would like, you could call us. We will transcribe the comments for you. You can come and visit us at the Central Bureau of Standards, and we can make a copy of the standard available for you to peruse, and also for you to be able to give your comments at any time during the comment period. So let me thank you for your participation and attendance at this event. Mr. Hood, are there any last words you would like to put? Mr. Hood, we're not hearing you. If you are, in fact, speaking, Mr. Hood.
Yeah, thank everyone for taking the time out, to come share this clip with us. Just have a good weekend. I know the weekend haven't come, but for me, it's weekend already, and stay COVID-free. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hood, and thank you again to our participants for being with us, for sharing with us. And we look forward to receiving your comments on the standards.